Hello, Abnormal Investigations. It's good to be back. Man, I tell you what, this virus has been rough. It has been tough. And finally, I feel like I might be able to read one of these and get through it without coughing my head off. Alright, guys, let's go ahead and get into this encounter for today. And we're also recording for the Patreon today, guys. The Patreon video will be released very, very soon. It will only be on our Patreon because there's no way YouTube would ever allow me to release what we're going to talk about. So if you want to see that video, you will have to subscribe to our Patreon, which will also give you access to photos and other materials. Alright guys, let's get into this one. I was 16 years old when my mother divorced my stepfather. We moved into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath duplex in a private airport. The layout of the place was simple. When you walked inside, you could see all the way to the back sliding glass door. The first bedroom was immediately to the right, followed by the guest bathroom, and then finally the master bedroom, which had its own bathroom inside. So there were 3 doors all on the right side and spaced around 8 feet apart. The kitchen, living room, and the dining room were all together in an open area between the front and back doors. We started experiencing paranormal activity almost immediately, starting with all 3 of all doors slamming at once. It really scared us the first few times it happened. We started noticing our yellow lab named Duke acting scared for no reason. Then his behavior started to change. He would sit with his head buried in the corner almost as if he was trying to hide from something. At first I was in denial, until one day after school I fell asleep on the couch with Duke lying on the floor directly in front of me. When I was jolted awake by my dog yelping, I looked at him, and I swear it looked like something had a hold of his tail and was pulling him backwards. Now, in all the excitement, I didn't notice at first, but when I stood up, I felt the temperature around me turn icy cold. This is summertime in Florida, so yeah, not normal. It was followed by a terrible sulfur smell that made me almost gag. The paranormal disturbances continued throughout the first year, such as our big home stereo system that would turn on by itself. The only sound would be white noise. If you listened closely, it sounded like people screaming in pain. Millions of people screaming in pain. I already had been feeling that whatever this was something evil. So I started doing some research on the house, and I found that the owner of this place also had a son who was connected to some people's deaths that had happened here in the past, but never changed since no evidence was ever found. So maybe this house had some evil history. I also found out that he and 3 of his friends lived in this house until his friends ultimately died. The autopsy reports that all 3 men died of drug overdose, which didn't seem very strange until I found out none of the 3 men had a history of heavy drug use. That's when I started to realize that these people had been drugged without knowing. After digging into the deaths that were linked to this guy in the past, I found out that these deaths were also drug overdoses. The paranormal activity getting progressively worse after learning this information. But if only I knew that was about to get worse. The atmosphere in the house became heavy and depressing. You could almost feel the evil hanging in the air. More things started happening, starting with spiders and scorpions being found all in the house. Poisonous spiders such as black widows and brown recluses. My mother was bitten by a brown recluse a short time later. It seemed that we were getting injured and getting sick while we were in this house. My little brother ended up getting a terrible infection in his eye that was very serious, and it could have cost him his vision or maybe even his life. Our poor dog was being tormented so much that he refused to leave the corner except to eat and drink, and then he acted like he was on guard. I started seeing things. At first, it was just seeing shadows in the corners, but eventually it turned into seeing full-fledged human-shaped masses that would just stand over me in my bed. Now I want to take the chance and say I don't believe this demonic entity was the spirit of one of the people that overdosed and died in the house, but I do think the demon was attached to the place because of the terrible things that happened there. Over time, the demon started moving closer to me until it was right on top of me. I knew that this thing was trying to get inside me, and I had to do something to keep it from possessing me. I didn't mention this before, because I didn't pertain to the story until now. The house had a two-car garage attached separately between our side of the duplex and our neighboring side, meaning you could not enter the garage from the house. You had to walk outside, down the sidewalk, open the garage from the outside. Now, when you opened the garage, the light switch was on the back wall. Beside the light switch were two garage opener buttons. The buttons were lit up with a small internal light, so you could see where they were when it was dark. This is how I would find the light switch when I would go do the laundry at night. I don't know why, but I had always felt like the garage was where the evil energy was linked to be. I never found out for sure, but my gut told me that that's where at least one of the men had died. One night I went out to do the laundry, like I had 1,000 times before, opened the garage door, looked at the light on the wall, and tried my best to hit it with my shins to turn it on. As I was drilling my way through the light switch, all at once I couldn't see the light on the wall. It took me a second to realize the light was being blocked by an enormous black mass. Now it's completely dark in there, but this massive mass was so large and so scary that I could see it even in the pitch blackness. In an instant, it was right on top of me. I felt completely paralyzed. Now I can make out slight facial features, a mouth, ears, nose. But what horrified me was its eyes. I've heard people describe demon eyes before. Some said red, some said green, but not this one. The creature before me had the deepest, darkest black eyes I'd ever seen. I began to realize that its eyes were holding me in place. I don't know how, but I just know that's how it controlled me. I noticed that there was a very faint gray pupil in the center of its eyes, which gave it even more terrifying look and gave me somewhat of a paralysis feeling. I felt that any second this thing was going to just tear me apart, and I thought there was nothing I could do until a memory came to my mind from my childhood of my grandmother telling me that if I ever came face to face with anything like this, to rebuke it in the name of our Lord. At this time, I felt like it wouldn't hurt. So I started repeating, I rebuke you in God's name, slowly and weakly at first. Then eventually I began screaming it, most powerful voice that I could muster. I rebuke you in the name of the Lord. The creature left. The garage door rattled and shook violently as it left. Now we have not seen this creature again, and I pray that it does not come back. We're keeping up our prayers and keeping up our faith. Yep, it sounds like you had an attachment to that house and you done exactly the right thing. Keep your faith, keep praying, keep a hedge up around your family and where you're living, and it won't be able to come back. I think you've done the right thing, and your grandma had taught you right by getting rid of it. And just do your best to stay in prayer, and maybe have your family join you to make it even stronger, and it should not be able to come back. I'm glad that you got rid of it. There's a lot of evil out there today, and there's power in the name for sure. Thanks for sending that in. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And again, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner, and it was nice being back with you guys. See y'all in the comments.